There's one rule for night shift rangers in Montana: never respond to distress calls after midnight. I broke it. I'm a ranger at Glacier National Park. When I started here 8 years ago, they sat me down during orientation and told me about the midnight rule. It wasn't in any manual, it wasn't official policy, but every ranger who worked night shift knew it, and every one of them followed it without question. If you get a distress call after midnight, my supervisor said, you log it, you report it to dispatch, but you do not respond until sunrise. I asked why. He looked at me for a long moment, then said, because the people who respond after midnight either find nothing or find something worse than nothing, or never come back at all. For 8 years, I followed that rule. I got maybe a dozen midnight calls in that time. Voices on the radio, sometimes panicked, sometimes eerily calm, always asking for help. I logged every one. Dispatch sent teams out at first light. They never found anyone. Then, on November the 3rd, at 2:47 AM, I got a call that changed everything. Forest Service, I need help. I'm at Avalanche Lake. I fell. My leg is broken. It was a woman's voice, young, maybe mid-20s, and she was crying, not screaming, not hysterical, just crying softly, the way someone does when they're alone and hurt and terrified. Please, I've been here for hours. I'm so cold. I stared at the radio. The midnight rule echoed in my head, but this was different. This wasn't some vague call with no details. She gave me location. She described an injury. She sounded real. Mom, can you tell me your name? Jennifer Cass. Please, I can't feel my leg anymore. I made a decision. I grabbed my pack, my medical kit, and my keys. I didn't call dispatch. I didn't tell anyone. I just went. Avalanche Lake is a 5-mile round trip from the trailhead. In the dark, with only a headlamp, it took me 90 minutes to get there. The whole time, I kept thinking about the midnight rule, about rangers who never came back. But I also kept thinking about Jennifer Cass, alone and hurt, waiting for someone to help her. I reached the lake at 2:23 AM. She was there, sitting on the shore, right where she said she would be. Her leg was bent at an angle that made my stomach turn. She was wearing a purple jacket, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, her face pale and streaked with tears. Thank God, she whispered when she saw me. I thought no one was coming. I radioed dispatch immediately, told them I had an injured hiker, needed a medevac. Then I knelt beside her and started assessing her leg. It was bad, compound fracture, bone visible through the skin. She'd been here for hours. She said she fell around 7 PM, tried to crawl back to the trailhead, gave up around 10 PM, and started calling for help on the radio she brought. You did the right thing, I told her. Help's on the way. She smiled. It was a strange smile, grateful but also sad. I'm sorry, she said. Sorry for what? For making you break the rule. My blood went cold. What did you say? The midnight rule, she said softly. You're not supposed to answer calls after midnight. I stood up, my hand going to my side arm. How did you know about that? She didn't answer. She just looked at me with those sad eyes, and then she said something that made my heart stop. I've been waiting so long. Every year, someone answers, and every year, they find me right here. What are you talking about? Check your records, she said. Jennifer Cass, missing since June 14th, 2018. My family recovered my body from this exact spot. I fumbled for my radio. Dispatch, run a name for me. Jennifer Cass, C-A-S-S. There was a pause. Then, Wells, we have a Jennifer Cass in the database. reported missing June 2018. Remains recovered at Avalanche Lake. Cause of death, hypothermia and compound leg fracture. I looked down at the woman in front of me. She was still sitting there, still bleeding, still crying. How? I don't know, she said. I just know I'm always here, waiting, and someone always answers. The helicopter arrived at 3:15 a.m. They airlifted her out, stabilized her leg, took her to hospital in Kalispell. I went with them. I watched the doctors examine her. I saw them treat the fracture, saw them give her fluids, saw them admit her for observation. She was real, flesh and blood, breathing, alive. The next morning, I checked the hospital. They told me Jennifer Cass had been discharged overnight, walked out on her own, no forwarding address. But here's what keeps me up at night. 2 weeks ago, dispatch forwarded me a missing persons report. A woman named Jennifer Cass had been reported missing by her family. She'd gone hiking at Glacier and never came back. The report was dated June 14th, 2018, 6 years ago. And last night, at 12:47 a.m, my radio crackled to life. Forest Service, I need help. I'm at Avalanche Lake. I fell. My leg is broken. It was her voice, the same words, the same static. I didn't respond, but someone will. Someone always does. I heard my partner screaming for help in the woods, but she was 200 miles away at home. I'm a ranger in the Adirondacks, New York. For 5 years, I've worked the overnight shift with my partner, Sarah Kellerman. We covered a 40-mile stretch of backcountry, responded to emergencies, checking remote campsites, keeping an eye on the wilderness when everyone else was asleep. Sarah was the best partner I've ever had. She knew these mountains better than anyone. When you're alone in the dark at 3 a.m, miles from the nearest road, you want someone like Sarah on the other end of the radio. That's why it was so terrifying when I heard her voice that night. It was October the 12th, 2:43 a.m. I was on a foot patrol near Marcy Dam, checking a cluster of backcountry sites that had reported bear activity earlier in the week. My radio crackled with static, not unusual in the mountains, where the signal bounces off peaks and gets swallowed by valleys. Then I heard it. David, help! Sarah's voice, faint, crackling through the static, but unmistakably hers. I stopped walking. Sarah, you copy? What's your 20? Static. Then, David, I'm lost. Can't find the trail. My stomach dropped. Sarah doesn't get lost, ever. I keyed my radio again. Sarah, stay where you are. What's your location? No response, just a hiss of dead air. I switched to the dispatch channel. Dispatch, this is Ranger Wells. I'm getting a garbled transmission from Ranger Kellerman. Can you raise her? There was a pause, then the dispatcher's voice, calm and professional. Wells, Kellerman's not on duty tonight. She called in sick. I've got her clocked out at home. I felt my skin go cold. Dispatch, I just heard her on the radio. Negative, Wells. She hasn't keyed her mic. I'm showing no transmission from her radio. I stood there in the darkness, my breath fogging in the October cold, staring at the radio in my hand like it had betrayed me. Then I heard it again, not on the radio this time, through the trees. David. Sarah's voice, louder now, desperate, coming from somewhere to my left, maybe 200 yards into the forest. Help me, I'm hurt. I ran, crashed through the underbrush, my flashlight bouncing, radio clutched in my hand. Sarah, keep talking, I'm coming. Over here. Her voice was close now. I could hear the fear in it, the pain. I broke through a stand of hemlock and found myself in the small clearing. my light sweeping across the open space. Empty. "David, please." The voice was behind me now. I spun around, light cutting through the dark. Nothing. Just trees and shadows. "Sarah, where are you?" "I'm right here." The voice was everywhere now, all around me, coming from the trees, from the ground, from the air itself. It was Sarah's voice. I knew it as well as my own, but it was wrong somehow. Too flat, like someone reading lines they didn't understand. I backed towards the centre of the clearing, my light whipping from tree to tree. My radio crackled. "David, I'm so cold." It was coming from my radio, Sarah's voice, clear as day, transmitting directly to me. But dispatch said she hadn't keyed her mic. "Sarah, if this is you, give me a signal. Turn your flashlight on and off." Silence. Then, from the darkness at the edge of the clearing, a light flicked on and off and on again. Someone was there. I ran towards it, shouting her name. The light stayed on, steady, waiting for me. 50 feet, 40, 30. I burst through the tree line and found a rock. A flat stone, maybe 3 feet across, sitting in the middle of the small depression. On top of it, balanced carefully, was a radio. My radio. The same model, the same scratch casing, the same call number printed on the side. And my radio was in my hand. I stared at it, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. Then the radio on the stone crackled to life. "Thank you for coming, David." Sarah's voice, but different now, calmer, wrong. "Who is this?" I whispered. "I've been practicing. Do I sound right?" I stumbled backwards. The radio on the stone kept talking. "I've been listening for so long, waiting, learning. You make it easy. You say the same things every night. Watch your 20. Stay where you are. Keep talking. It's all patterns. I just had to practice." I turned and ran. I made it back to the ranger station by 4 a.m. Called Sarah immediately. She answered, groggy, confused. "David, what's wrong?" "Are you home?" "Yeah, I've been asleep for hours. Why?" I didn't answer. I hung up and called dispatch. Told them to send someone to pick up the radio from the clearing. They found it the next morning, exactly where I said it would be. The tech team analysed it. The recordings were authentic. Sarah's voice, her speech patterns, her inflections. But here's what made them send it to the FBI. The radio contained 47 hours of Sarah's voice, things she said over the past 6 months, pulled from our transmissions, archived, stored. But underneath every word, barely audible, was a second voice, whispering the same words 0.3 seconds before Sarah said it. Like something was teaching itself to speak. Sarah quit 2 weeks later. I don't blame her. I still work night shift, but now, whenever I hear a voice on the radio, I wait and I listen for the whisper underneath. Campers reported screaming at 2 a.m. When we got there, the tent was empty, still zipped from the inside. I'm a ranger at Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. I've been working night shifts for 3 years and I've responded to dozens of disturbance calls, drunk campers, bear encounters, domestic disputes, you name it, I've seen it. But I've never seen a tent that broke the laws of physics. The call came in at 2:14 a.m. from Site 23 in the Big Meadows campground. A couple in Site 24 reported hearing a woman screaming in the tent next to them. Not arguing, not laughing, screaming. The kind that makes your skin crawl. My partner Jake and I were there in 6 minutes. Site 23 was occupied by a solo camper, a 28-year-old woman from Richmond named Emily Chen. Her car was still there, a blue Honda Civic with a parking pass on the dash. Her tent was a standard 2-person dome, the kind you buy at REA, lit from the inside by a battery lantern that cast a warm glow through the nylon. The couple from Site 24 met us at the road. They were in their 50s, dressed in matching fleece jackets, looking shaken. "She was screaming for help," the woman said. "We went over there ourselves, but it stopped," the husband finished. "Just stopped. Middle of a scream, like someone flipped a switch." Jake and I approached the tent. I called out, "Park service? Emily, are you okay in there?" No response. The lantern was still on. I could see the shadow of a sleeping bag through the fabric, the outline of a backpack propped against the tent wall. Everything looked normal. "Emily, I'm coming in," I said. I reached for the zipper. It was closed, fully zipped. The slider at the bottom, the 2 zipper pulls nestled together in their locked position. The kind of closure you make from the inside before you go to sleep. I unzipped it and looked inside. Empty. The sleeping bag was laid out flat, still warm to the touch. A phone was plugged into a portable battery, screen showing 2:17 AM. A half-eaten protein bar sat on the stuffed sack. Her boots were lined up neatly by the door, but no Emily. "Check the bathrooms," Jake said. "Maybe she got out before the screaming." But that didn't make sense. The tip was zipped from the inside, and the couple said the screaming came from inside the tent. They were sure of it. We searched the campground, bathrooms, trails, parking lot, called her name into the darkness. Nothing. At 3 AM, we called in a search team. By dawn, we had 20 people combing the area. We found her phone, still in the tent. We found her wallet, her keys, her ID, everything except Emily. The only thing we did was find strange footprints, fresh boot prints in the dirt, leading from the front of her tent into the woods. Size 7 women's hiking boots, exactly the kind Emily had in her tent. But here's what didn't make sense. The prints started 5 feet in front of the tent, not at the door, 5 feet away, like she materialized out of thin air and started walking. We followed them for 200 yards into the forest. Then they stopped, just ended, in the middle of the trail. No reason, no disturbance. One moment there were prints, the next there was nothing. The case was never solved. Emily Chen is still listed as missing. Her family held a memorial service 6 months later. But here's what they didn't tell you. 3 weeks after Emily disappeared, I was called into the ranger station to review security footage. Big Meadows has a camera at the campground entrance that records every vehicle coming and going. The footage showed Emily's car arriving at 4:32 PM the day she vanished. It showed her setting up her tent. It showed her cooking dinner on the camp stove, reading a book by lantern light, zipping herself into her tent at 11:47 PM. And then, at 2:09 AM, 5 minutes before the screaming, it showed her unzipping the tent and walking out. I watched her step into the frame, moving slowly, almost mechanically. She was wearing her boots, her jacket, but something was wrong with the way she moved. Too stiff, too purposeful. She walked past the camera, into the woods, and disappeared from view. The timestamp said 2:09 AM. The screaming started at 2:14 AM, inside the tent. I rewound the footage, watched it again. At 2:09 AM, Emily walks out of the tent and into the woods. At 2:15 AM, 1 minute after the screaming stopped, the tent is still glowing from the inside, still occupied. Then, at 2:16 AM, the footage shows someone walking back towards the tent. It's Emily. Same jacket, same boots, same face. She stops outside her tent, doesn't go in, just stands there, staring at it. Then she turns towards the camera, and for just a moment, her face is fully visible. She's not blinking. She stands there for 11 seconds, staring directly into the camera. And then she turns and walks back into the woods. Emily's car never left the parking lot. The tent was zipped from the inside when we found it, and on the security footage, Emily walked into the woods twice. We never found out what happened to Emily Chen. We received a distress call at exactly 3:12 AM with GPS coordinates. When we arrived, we found a 40-year-old campsite. I'm a Forest Service ranger in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest, Washington. I've been responding to emergency calls for 8 years. You get to recognise the real ones fast. The panic in someone's voice, the specific details, the way they give you coordinates instead of landmarks. This call was real. I was sure of it. My radio squawked at 3:12 AM exactly. I know because I checked my watch when the transmission started. Night shifts make you obsessive about time. Forest Service, this is coordinates 46.2317 north, 121.8942 west, need help. The voice was male, young, breaking with static. Then the transmission cut out. I radioed back. This is Ranger Station 12. We copy your distress call. What's your situation? No response. I punched the coordinates into the GPS. They pinpointed a location about 8 miles northwest in a remote section of backcountry that sees maybe a dozen hikers a year. No maintained trails, no self-service, the kind of place you don't go unless you really know what you're doing. I grabbed my partner, Marcus, and we were in the truck within 5 minutes. The coordinates took us to the end of the logging road that hadn't been used in decades. We hiked the last 2 miles on foot, flashlights cutting through the dense forest of Douglas fir and western hemlock. We found the campsite at 4:47 AM. It was old, really old. There was a fire ring made of river stones, blackened with ancient char. A fallen log that had been positioned as a bench. The wood was so rotten it crumbled when I touched it, and partially hidden under a spool of ferns, the collapsed remains of a tent, canvas, not nylon, the fabric stained with decades of moss and mildew. What the hell? Marcus muttered. I walked the perimeter, no fresh tracks, no recent disturbance. This campsite hadn't been used in years, maybe decades. But the coordinates were exact. This was the spot. Check for a body, I said. We searched the area, looking under logs, checking for disturbed earth. Nothing. Whoever was camped here was long gone. Then Marcus called me over. You need to see this. He was crouched near the fire ring, brushing away layers of pine needles. Underneath, partially buried, was a metal box, forest green, about the size of a lunch box, with rust eating through the corners. I pried it open. Inside was a logbook, the kind rangers use for patrol records, with a weather-resistant cover and gridded pages. I opened it carefully. The entries were handwritten, spanning decades. September the 14th, 1974, 3:12 AM, distress call received at these coordinates, responded, found abandoned campsite, no sign of distress caller. August the 3rd, 1981, 3:12 AM, distress call, same coordinates, same voice on the radio, found nothing. June the 22nd, 1989, 3:12 AM, distress call, coordinates match previous responses, campsite undisturbed, no explanation. The entries continued. Every few years, someone responded to the same call, always at 3:12 AM, always the same coordinates, always the same result, nothing. The last entry was dated 6 months ago, April the 8th, 2024. 3:12 AM, distress call, responded, found logbook, added my entry, Ranger T. Holloway. I knew that name. Tom Holloway had been a ranger here for 15 years. He transferred out, last spring. According to the records, I'd never met him. He worked a different sector. Marcus called dispatch, asked them about Tom Holloway. Marcus radioed in. There was a long pause, then a dispatcher's voice. Holloway didn't transfer wells. He went missing. Last known location was a night patrol response. They never found him. I looked down at the logbook, at Tom Holloway's neat handwriting. Then I flipped it to the back pages. There was one more entry, written in different ink, in a shaky hand. October the 12th, 2024, 4:47 AM. If you're reading this, you responded to the call at exactly 3:12 AM. Same as me, same as everyone before. The call is real, the voice is real, but you're not here to save anyone. You're here because you're next. Today's date, the time Marcus and I arrived. My blood ran cold. Marcus, we need to leave, now. That's when we heard it, static, coming from the forest, not from our radios, from somewhere in the trees. The crackling, hissing sound of a radio transmission, but louder, unnatural, like it was coming from everywhere at once. And then, through the static, a voice. Forest Service, this is coordinates 46.2317 north, 121.8942 west, need help. The same voice from the call, the same words, the same static. Marcus grabbed my arm. That's not our radio. The static grew louder, closer. The voice kept repeating, over and over. Need help, need help, need help. We ran. I don't know how long it took us to get back to the truck. Maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour. Time felt wrong, stretched thin, like we were running through water. When we finally made it back to the ranger station, we filed a report. I wrote down everything, submitted the logbook as evidence. The next night, I wasn't scheduled for duty, but at 3:12 AM, my radio turned on by itself, and I heard my own voice calling for help.